Hello and welcome back to the GB Fantasy Football channel. In today's video, we're going to be looking at Game Week 5 and beyond, the top differentials, everything that brings, and all the fun stuff to look out for. Thank you once again for the support on the channel. In the last video, we hit 100 likes, one of the big targets. So if you can do that again for this video, it'd be greatly appreciated. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button for future content coming down the lane, Game Week 6 and beyond. There's lots of good stuff for us to cover. Comment down below on how your week's gone so far. I think I'm on about 103 points, so not too good, not too bad. Kind of middle of the road stuff, but hopefully with a few more Champions League fixture tonight. As of recording this is Wednesday, so we're still waiting for Chelsea, Newcastle, etc. to play. Lots of points still to be had. Without further ado, let's crack on with the video. Now, this will hopefully be a weekly series on the channel of top differentials in each game week. Of course, these differentials aren't specifically targeted to just Game Week 5, it's Game Week 5 and beyond. So in this episode, we're going to be looking at specifically European-based teams. Of course, the Carabao Cup has now been and gone for teams that aren't in Europe. And I do believe that the teams that are in Europe, Carabao Cup-wise, in Game Week 5, they will heavily rotate. So it's not really been taken into consideration much. I think it would... Personally, I'm treating it like a single game week going forward. So the European teams are the ones that are targeted in this episode. Now, first up for the goalkeepers. Actually, before we get into it, Sun Dream Team League code just underneath the camera down below. Go join it. Go check it out. It's free to join. See where you are each week, and potentially, if you are in the top 10, you could feature in an episode. So, first off, I've got the goalkeepers. Now, goalkeepers and attackers in this video are quite tricky going forward, but we'll get to them a little later on. Goalkeeper-wise, first up, Matt Sells. Now, I've been quite bullish on Sells, but potentially could be going down in price this week. Of course, he still does have a fixture to go, and I'll be intrigued to see if he plays that one. I think they've got Swansea away in the Carabao Cup. I think Postecoglou has said that they will go strong. But I think Sells at that 3.2 million price bracket it's quite a nice bridge between a very cheap goalkeeper. I think a lot of us would have had Perry, a lot of us would have had Royce. Potentially, a few of you might have gone big at the start with a few European goalkeepers, but like myself, I've got Sells. He's potentially going up 0.3 this week. I actually think he will. He got 10 points, so it'd be close to 2.6, 2.7 million. And I think with Sells potentially dropping to 3.1, I think at the start of the season, if somebody would have told me I could get a Forest defensive asset for only 0.4/0.5 more than a Sunderland defensive asset, I would have snapped your hand off for it. 8 points total, which is really poor. It really is. But we're not looking at what's been, we're looking at what could be going forward. And only 2 points average. Disappointing, yes, but potential going forward. I think maybe for personal reasons, it might be a target for Game Week 6 onwards. I do want to see if he is the starting goalkeeper Forest in the Europa League. If he is, I think he's a fantastic one to go for. Next up, we've got Vicario of Tottenham. I think a lot of you would have already doubled up on that Tottenham defence. Just a word of warning though for Tottenham. I've seen a lot of statistics flying around that despite them only conceded one goal this season, which is a fantastic return, one goal in 5 games, bearing in mind where Tottenham were defensively last season, it's a hell of a turnaround. So fair play to Thomas Frank and the backroom staff over at Tottenham. But I think they was projected to concede at least 4 goals so far this season. Of course, they got a penalty given against them last night in the Villarreal game. It was rightfully overturned, and they came away with a clean sheet again. Only 7.2% owned. 40 points so far in 5 games is an astonishing return for any player. An outfield player, you'll be happy with that, let alone a goalkeeper. 8 points average per game, 4.1 million. He is in line for probably a 0.3 rise this week. So if you're going to hop on him, it might be the time to do so if you've got the budget available. I think he's just at that price point where he's not too expensive, but if he goes up 0.3 again, you're touching 4.5 million, and I think that's quite a premium asset for a goalkeeper, but certainly one on my radar. Next up, we've got a brand new goalkeeper into the game, and that is Donnarumma of Manchester City. Kept a clean sheet in his first fixture at home to Man United at the weekend. 8 points in total, of course, 8 points average, only playing 1 game, and 4 million. Now, I do think that Trafford will play the Carabao Cup fixture. Donnarumma, in my personal opinion, will play every other fixture going forward. He showed his class with that Mbermo save. And I do think that's where he differs from Edison. Yes, he's not as good with the football at his feet. He's not as good splitting the lines with the pass from the back four, back five, whatever it is, Man City wise. But I like a goalkeeper to be a goalkeeper. It's a bit old fashioned, but if you keep the ball out the net, I think you're going to go a long way. And I think Donnarumma, from personal experience against PSG last season, is a world class goalkeeper. 4 million offers a pretty stable route into that Man City defence, which is otherwise quite volatile with the Pep Roulette. Definitely a good asset. And the final player in the goalkeeper list, we've got four, of course, is Henderson of Palace. Now, he is last on this list, 9.3% owned, 26 points overall, an average of 6.5. 3.8 million in value, but he is the one I am most wary of. They've got Walter Benitez, the backup goalkeeper, who they signed in the summer, and he actually did quite well in the Carabao Cup game. Henderson didn't play. They drew 1-1 at home to Millwall. They went through on penalties, so they are into the fourth round of the Carabao Cup. But Benitez played in that one. And I think there's a running theme with Palace defenders at the minute and goalkeepers where Mitchell, I think he is a rotation risk. I think Chris Richards is a rotation risk. And I think Dean Henderson could potentially miss a few games in the Conference League going forward. He's a very good asset. We know what he was like from the back end of last season. He's very much a point scoring goalkeeper, getting saves, a few bonus points along the way. And in that Palace defence, which is normally quite good for a clean sheet, he offers a good route. But I would be very wary of Benitez going forward from potentially a few Henderson substitution appearances. Well, not coming on, but starting on the bench, if you will. Next up, we do have 5 defenders on today's list. Once again, sticking with the European theme. Jed Spence, 5.1% owned, 31 points overall, similar to Vicario. Lots of clean sheets. I think 4 clean sheets out of 5 to start the season, so they've been really good defensively. An average of 6.2 points per game and 3.8 million in total. Now, he is a good asset, but similar to the back end of last season with Tottenham, they've got 3 very competent fullbacks. They've got Spence, they've got Udogie, and they've got Pedro Porro. Now, it seems like Spence and Udogie are sharing that left back role with Porro playing pretty much most minutes out on the right. But the problem with Porro is he's had his set pieces taken off him. Last season it was Maddison taking it off him, but this season it looks like it's Xavi Simons, which substantially lowers his value overall to us. He's obviously less routes to points. But I think Spence currently has that left back role under wraps. And the thing is, if you're going into Carabao Cup competitions, I do think there's a potential just overall of Jed Spence playing at right back, Udogie at left back, and potentially Pedro Porro missing a few minutes along the season. Now, it does look like Spence has that position to lose, but it is one to note. Good for tackles, good for bonus points occasionally, but it's mainly the clean sheets that you're targeting for that 3.8 million price. Next up, Matty Cash. Now, in that back four for Aston Villa, I won't be going for Emi Martinez. Once again, he missed the Carabao Cup fixture last night, wasn't even on the bench. I'm not too sure what that reason was. But, as Unai Emery says, Bizzo. And I think Bizzo has shown himself to be quite a competent goalkeeper going forward. And I think Martinez might have a few minutes taken off him. So when you're going into that Villa defence, you're looking for a few nailed assets. Now, the 2 that stand out to me are Matty Cash and Ezra Konsa. Now, I spoke in a podcast recently. I was on the Dream Team Tonic podcast. I think their video is now out live, so do go check it out. I was a special guest over there. We all spoke how our week's going so far, all things Sun Dream Team and Gameweek 5. So do go check it out. There'll probably be a link in the description below if I remember. If not, go check out their X. It's all over there. Great lads. It was fantastic time being over there. But back to the defensive assets. Matty Cash, I've got on this list ahead of Ezra Konsa just. Now, Matty Cash is probably going to be going down in price this week, if not potentially staying stable. Now, the reason why he's on this list ahead of Ezra Konsa is simply value. I think he's about 0.2 or 0.3 cheaper than Ezra Konsa, which at this stage of the season is a substantial amount, especially if you're trying to get in those big hitters in midfield and up front. 2.8% owned, 23 points overall, which is quite a lot for a Villa team that's flattered to deceive so far going forward. Average of 4.6 points per game, and a really good asset. Obviously, they could get to a stage where Konsa ends up at right back if they get a few centre halves in. But I do think that Cash and Konsa in that back 4, back 5, if you include the goalkeeper, are the route forward for their Europa League campaign. Next up, we've got a very rogue one, and that is Nico Williams from Nottingham Forest. 4.9% owned, only 9 points this entire season. A really poor return, similar to Matt Sells at the start of this video. But yes, it is no longer a Nuno defence. But under a Postecoglou team, can you get the best out of Nico Williams? Now, they're very short at the back defensively. Oleana is out for 3 months. They look pretty poor against Arsenal. Nico Williams started as a right back, I'm tempted to say, got shifted to a left back. And I think that is where he's more comfortable, especially with, obviously, they had that partnership with Aina for a long time, Milenkovic and Murillo at centre half. 9 points in total, average of only 2.3 this season, which is really poor. He's tempted, well, he will go down in price depending on the Carabao Cup game, if he plays in that or not. If they get a clean sheet away to Swansea, I can see him maybe keeping his value going into game week 5. But he's certainly on my radar despite the price decrease. And I think that Forest defence going into the Europa League will pick up a few points along the way. Next up, I've gone for a Roshat and Kuzanov. I think it's pronounced, him from Manchester City. He played it right back at the weekend, I'm tempted to say, in the Manchester derby, and he acquitted himself quite well. 12 points in total, 4 points average, only 0.5% owned, as I said, 4.3 million in total. Will he stay in that Man City defence? And that's why I like Donnarumma so much. He offers a very stable route into the defence. Kuzanov, can you cheap out going forward? I'm not too sure, but he's definitely one to note. And finally on this list is Zinchenko. Now, he might appear later on in this video. A little spoiler there for you. 0.4% owned, 0 points, 0 point average, and only 3 million. But as I spoke about with regards to the Ole Aina injury, I do think they will set up with Williams as a right back maybe going forward and Zinchenko as a left back inverted into midfield. There's one caveat with Zinchenko. They didn't include him in the European squad. Now, Chelsea have recently had an injury and put a new player into, well, replace them going forward. And I think that will be the same exception with Forest. I think with the Ole Aina injury, Zinchenko will be allowed to go into that squad going forward. And I think it will make him a very, well, a much better asset, as you will. Will he pick up the same form that he had at Arsenal 2-3 seasons ago? I'm not too sure. But with the Ange system where he prefers one fullback to invert and the other one to be slightly more defensive, I think Zinchenko has the ability to pick up lots of points going forward if he's added into that European team. My apologies if at any stage in this video you do hear me slightly differently. I am currently fighting off a cold of sorts. So once again, apologies. Hopefully we're digging in deep and pushing through this video for your enjoyment and the content on Sun Dream Team, that is. Now we're on to the midfielders. Plenty of options here. A little bit slim on the attacking front, but we'll get to that in just a little while. First up in the midfield selection, Moises Caicedo of Chelsea. 9.7% owned, time of recording this. That is the same for all of these players. Of course, that is subject to going up and going down the closer we get to the game week 5 deadline. But it's 9.7% owned, 37 points this season so far. A fantastic return for what we describe as a holding midfielder in this game. An average of 9.3 per game. Looks like he's good for bonus. He's picked up a few goals this season. I wouldn't expect that to continue by any stretch of the imagination, but that's always a nice bonus. And 4.5 million overall. Of course, Chelsea have got Bayern Munich tonight, and I'll be intrigued to see how that just pans out in general. It's going to be a great game to watch. It's either Wednesday or Thursday. I'll be viewing it regardless. Caicedo, though, he's looking like the Declan Rice from last season, and that's what we want. Reliability. I think in that Chelsea team where there's a lot of rotation, you'd expect Caicedo to play pretty much every minute of every game, barring the Carabao Cup fixtures. Of course, they've got Man United away in game week 5 with a Carabao Cup game. I don't think he'll play in that, but from game week 6 onwards, he is very much a player on my radar. Morgan Gibbs-White. Now, going into game week 5, I think there's only 2 real doublers, 2 teams that will really double, that is. And that is Nottingham Forest and Aston Villa. I think if we get any more doublers from any of the other players, bar them 2 teams, it's more of a bonus than anything else. And I think Gibbs-White being the nailed Forest asset, at least we think he is, I've opted for him slightly ahead of Elliot Anderson. 7.9% owned overall, only 16 points, an average of 4 points per game, which isn't as bad as Williams and Sells on the Forest front, and 4.4 million overall. I think he's got that potential, is that definite flair player when you look at Forest. I think Chris Wood will be rotated in and out up front with their. I think they've got Igor Jesus. I'm tempted to say his name is, and they sign another centre forward towards the back end of the transfer window. Of course, Timo Awanyi. I think that's his name also. So they've got four centre forward options. So Gibbs White for me. If you're going to pick a Nottingham Forest player this week, it's either Gibbs White or Elliot Anderson going forward. Next up, we've got a player from last season that many of us would have owned at some stage. It was one of the players in the mid-season that kind of propelled me from the tens of thousands into just the four-digit numbers on the leaderboards, and that is Phil Foden. Of course, he's very hit and miss, very hot and cold in this Man City team. Only 2% owned so far, 11 points overall, an average of 5.5. He scored at the weekend. He got his customary Manchester Derby goal against Man United. Only 4.8 million now. I think he was touching 6.5 million in the last season for Sun Dream Team. So to see him this low is really interesting. Of course, Marmoush is out for a fair while from his injury for his national squad. And I do think that actually opens the door for Phil Foden going forward. Of course, he's had his own injury problems over the last year to 18 months, but we know what type of player Foden can be. And with Haaland in the form that he's in, I think a lot of us would have Haaland anyway. And if you're going forward, captaining Erling Haaland, the only way to really gain points in that Manchester City attack is by having a second option who's scoring points. Of course, if you've already got to Johnny Reinders, I wouldn't be tripling up on that Man City attack. Jeremy Doku picked up a couple of assists at the weekend, but he tends to drop out the team quite often. And I think if Foden hits the ground running for only 4.8 million and 2% owned, he could be a really good asset. He really, really could. And with that Man City team, of course, these players that haven't had many minutes at the start of the season, I could actually see Phil Foden playing in the Carabao Cup fixture. And there's not many people on this list who I'd say could potentially have those minutes in game week 5, but he is one of them. Next up, Sandro Tonali of Newcastle. Now, I've opted for him instead of Bruno Guimaraes. I think Tonali playing at the base of that midfield three is picking up more points. 16 points overall, 4 points average, 4.3 million. And with Newcastle now coming into the European fixture calendar, Champions League games, I do feel like he will be a very nailed asset in that Newcastle midfield. Ever reliable. He does pick up the odd attacking return, but that's not really his game. It's bonus points, it's tackles, all that good stuff. And the final player in the midfield list for today's differential video is Harvey Elliott of Aston Villa. Now, he played about 60 odd minutes last night, and that was his first start for the club. Now, I've seen a lot of Aston Villa fans been questioned since last night. Is he going to start the weekend? Will he start against Sunderland? And the majority of the response is yes. He will start in that number 10 role. Maybe Morgan Rogers off the left. And is it Gisson? We'll get to him in a little while off the right hand side. Or maybe up front. I didn't really watch the Villa game last night, but I did see the highlights and I saw Harvey Elliott score his goal. I wouldn't say it was well taken. I'd say it was more of a Brentford goalkeeping error. But a goal is a goal. And with Villa really struggling for goals at the start of this season, I'm sure they would have taken anything. 1.2% owned, as I said, 13 points overall, an average of 4.3 and 3.5 million. If he can get that starting number 10 role for Aston Villa going forward, I think he's going to be very much the Morgan Rogers from last season in this 25-26 Sun Team campaign. Can we rely on him starting? Has he got the minutes in his legs? I think we're getting to that stage where Villa really need a bright spark in their season, and with him being the only goal scorer so far, I do feel like he might be their shining hope to potentially propel their season to get it up and running. Is one to know, is one to put on our shortlist, and he's certainly on my radar, even for game week 5. Now, I thought I'd maybe only use one transfer going into game week 5 and have 3 going into game week 6, but Harvey Elliott has really grabbed my attention with that price rise as well. It's one to know. Finally, onto the attackers. Now, as mentioned at the start of the video, the attackers and the goalkeepers were quite difficult for this list. There's only 4, and that is because there seems to be a template rising slowly. It seems like our 3 attacking assets are being taken up by 4 players in particular, and that's Gyökeres, João Pedro, Salah, and Haaland. Now, 2 of them being premium assets, I think a lot of teams would have already had from the start of the season, but with João Pedro and Gyökeres slowly coming into people's attention, it seems like that is the way that the teams are moulding. Players on today's list: Cody Gakpo, 7.7% owned, 29 points in total, an average of 7.3 per game, and 4.9 million overall. Now, we're still yet to see how that Liverpool team will line up with Isak, Ekitike, Salah, Wirtz, Gakpo. 5 players, 4 positions. Someone's got to miss out. And I do feel like Gakpo has a lot of trust from Arne Slot. I think Ekitike and Isak will potentially rotate for a few weeks until Isak's got his fitness up, and then I genuinely do think it will be Ekitike that drops down to the bench. Gakpo, I do think, will play twice in game week 5. Whether or not he starts both games is still yet to be seen, of course, but I feel like he will start the league game and then maybe come off the bench in the Carabao Cup fixture at home to Southampton, I'm tempted to say. So, a good asset. Can he break the mould? Maybe. Next up, Mateta of Crystal Palace. 5.5% owned, 24 points in total, 4.8 per game, 4.4 million. Now, if you watched the game last night, he missed an absolute sitter in the 93rd minute. Not only did I have Munoz, who cost me a lot of money last season, finishing not first in Sun Dream Team, he was the single player, ironically, that cost me a lot of the ranking points, so I thought I'd give him a try this season. He didn't get taken off. Crystal Palace conceded in the 92nd minute, so those of you who did go for Mark Gay certainly won out yesterday. Lacroix, Munoz, and just Henderson, he didn't even play. So if you went for those 2 players, you did really well. Munoz slid the ball to Mateta in the last minute. An open goal, missed. Fell over his own feet. He did pick up an assist in this game, though. And for those of you who did captain him in hopes of 2 starts, you did get the 2 starts, but maybe not the points that you were hoping for. Mateta is going to be really good going into the Conference League, but one caveat. Glasner has come out and said that Mateta is looking very tired and he needs a rest. Now, we don't know when that's going to be. We don't know whether it's going to be in the Conference League, the Premier League, or a Carabao Cup 4th round game, but he is going to get a rest. Of course, Eddie Nketiah would be the natural replacement. I don't know how long his injury is set to keep him on the side for, but when he is fit, it wouldn't surprise me if they take a few minutes off Mateta and maybe he is not the nailed 100% start every game player that we thought he was going to be. For the time being, though, until at least maybe game week 7, is a good option. Next up, Voltemade. I think that's how you pronounce it. Newcastle's new 6'8" or whatever he is, the big lad up front. 10 points to start is Newcastle career. Only 1.8% owned, which is a very low amount, specifically because Newcastle are in Europe. Yes, they do have Barcelona in their opening fixture. And yes, Voltemade did ask to be brought off after 65 minutes with cramp, but that is all. It's going to come to him. His fitness is going to come and he will get used to the Premier League. 10 points average, of course. He's only played 1 game and 4 million in total. Now, the thing with Voltemade is how he's going to play in that system with Johan Visser, Anthony Gordon, Harvey Barnes, Jacob Murphy. There's a lot of attacking options, and you do feel like with Newcastle, the midfield 3 will stay very samey. It'll be Joelinton, it'll be Tonali, it'll be Bruno Gomes. Maybe you might get the odd one going there like Jacob Ramsey when he's fit, but I think for the whole, the front 3 will be the front 3. There won't be any midfielders or number 10s, as you will. So you'll have Anthony Gordon on one side. You'll probably have Voltemade up front, and then maybe Jacob Murphy on the right. But as I said, I'll be intrigued to see how that plays out. But for the time being, Voltemade is a good option. And the last attacker on this list is a player I don't know too much about, is Gesond of Aston Villa. Now, I've seen, similar to Harvey Elliott from last night, I've seen a few Aston Villa quotes. They said he looks quite raw on the ball. Now, that is understandable. He was a big money signing into their club. 8 points in total this season, 2 points on average, only 3.1 million, but apparently he looked lively. And as I said, his attacking options, we're digging deep here. There's a big template and there's a reason for that. So Gesond, I think Rodgers will play on the left. I think you'll have Ollie Watkins up front in the league games, and I think you'll have Harvey Elliott in that number 10 role. So that does leave the right wing position a bit free. Will McGinn go out to the right when you get a few more midfield options come back? Will Gesond take that right side? I'm not too sure. Only 0.1% owned. Keep him on our shortlist. I won't be going there straight away. He is definitely a one to watch for the future game weeks. But at 3.1 million, I feel like there is potential there, but maybe not quite yet. And that does conclude the Game Week 5 differentials video. I hope you've enjoyed. Leave a comment down below on if any player in this video has caught your eye and if you're going to be potentially bringing him into your team for Game Week 5 and beyond. With the European campaign up and running and Carabao Cups, we're going to have lots of double game weeks in the near future. Now, do go check out my socials in the description down below. We've got X, we've got Instagram, we've got TikTok, all that good stuff. So please do go check it out. And don't forget to go and check out my appearance over on the Dream Team Tonic podcast. The video is now out live. I will leave a link in the description below if I remember. Hopefully I do, of the video. So go check it out. We had a good laugh, good breakdown of all things Sun Dream Team over there. It's a fun time. Cracking bunch of lads and lots of fun, of course. Do leave a comment down below on how your week is going so far, points wise. As I said, I think I'm on about 103. Kudos got a few extra points overnight, which was greatly appreciated, especially after the 93rd minute Palace clean sheet wipeout. Wasn't ideal. Drop a subscribe down below if you've enjoyed today's video, and please do hit the thumbs up. We can target 100 for this video if we can, that is. That'd be greatly appreciated. We've hit it on the last one. Let's see if we can do it on today's one. So thank you very much for watching, and you'll be seeing me in a new video very soon.